It begins with the sound of the Tiber River flowing silently through the dawn mists of ancient Italy. Rome does not yet exist as an empire, not even as a city. Only scattered villages, wild forests, and the distant echoes of myths that speak of gods, kings, and heroes. And yet, in this quiet, uncertain world, a story begins, a story that will grow into the mightiest empire the world has ever seen. From humble beginnings, two brothers, Romulus and Remus, rise from legend. They are said to be children of Mars, raised by a she-wolf, nurtured in secret, carrying the blood of gods in their veins. The narrator's voice softens, almost whispering, as if sharing a secret past through millennia. They fight. They struggle. One brother falls, and the other, Romulus, stands alone, founding a city on Palatine Hill. This city, small and fragile, will one day hold the destiny of the world. The camera lingers over a cinematic reconstruction of early Rome, mud brick huts, wooden palisades, smoke rising from hearths, citizens walking barefoot on cobbled paths. The narrator continues. From these beginnings, Rome grows, shaped by kings who rule with wisdom and brutality. Each leader adds laws, temples, and roads, leaving a foundation of discipline and structure that will outlast centuries. The city is alive, breathing through its citizens, growing in ambition and strength. The early republic emerges, fueled by citizens who demand voice and law, challenging the authority of kings. Patricians and plebeians struggle, negotiate, and define the meaning of citizenship. Rome's people learn that power is not only held by birth but also earned through courage, intellect, and loyalty. The Republic thrives on debate, strategy, and military conquest, carving out space in a world full of rival city-states and foreign threats. Across the hills of Latium, armies clash. The battlefield becomes a theater of strategy, valor, and sometimes horror. Soldiers march in disciplined formations, their armor gleaming in the Mediterranean sun. The narrator describes the genius of Roman military innovation, the manipular formations, the roads that stretch across hills and rivers, the logistics that make Rome unstoppable. Conquest is not simply an act of war, it is a carefully orchestrated process, combining politics, alliances, and brute strength, yet Rome is never peaceful for long. The expansion of the Republic brings inevitable conflicts, the Samnite Wars, the struggle for dominance in Italy, and the Punic Wars against Carthage. Hannibal crosses the Alps, elephants trudging through snow, leaving devastation in his wake. Rome responds, relentless and unyielding. Generals like Scipio Africanus rise, strategies unfold, and history is written in blood and fire. The Mediterranean begins to feel the weight of Rome's ambition. Within the Republic, tensions grow. Senators argue, citizens riot, and the gap between rich and poor widens. Great men seize opportunity. Julius Caesar emerges, a brilliant general, a master of strategy and rhetoric. His campaigns in Gaul bring unimaginable wealth and power. Yet his rise sparks fear and envy in the Senate. The narrator pauses, letting the moment settle. Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon is not merely a military act, it is a declaration of change. The Republic trembles. History pivots, civil war spreads across the empire. Rome is both battlefield and home, torn by competing ambitions. Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar clash in politics and on distant lands. Families are divided, loyalties tested. Caesar emerges victorious, yet power carries its own dangers. The Ides of March approach. On that fateful day, senators strike in the shadows, ending Caesar's life, leaving Rome stunned, uncertain, and yearning for order. From the chaos rises Octavian, later known as Augustus. The Republic fades. The empire begins. Augustus consolidates power, reforms administration, strengthens Rome's borders, and ushers in the Pax Romana. Peace spreads, culture flourishes, trade expands. Roads, aqueducts, and temples rise. Writers like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid craft words that will echo across millennia. Rome becomes not only a power of war but also a beacon of law, architecture, and literature, and yet, this golden age is only the beginning. The empire stretches from the sands of Africa to the forests of Germania, from the misty islands of Britannia to the deserts of the Middle East. Emperors rise and fall. Intrigue, betrayal, and ambition thread through the halls of power. Lives are shaped, kingdoms shift, and history moves relentlessly forward. The narrator's voice softens as the camera pans over a reconstructed Roman forum, alive with citizens, merchants, and senators. The viewer is left with a sense of awe. Rome is more than stone and mortar. It is an idea, a force, a story written by its people, generals, poets, and rulers alike. The empire is vast now, stretching across continents, a network of roads, cities, and people bound by Roman law. Augustus has established stability, but power always invites ambition, and the succession of emperors begins a chain of glory, intrigue, and betrayal. Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, names that will echo through history, each leaving a mark on Rome's destiny. For better or worse, the camera moves through a lavish imperial palace. Marble columns tower, frescoes glow in candlelight, and guards pace silently. Tiberius walks the halls with measured steps, his mind calculating loyalty and threat. Across Rome, citizens whisper rumors, senators scheme, and conspiracies take root in shadows. Power is intoxicating, and the streets of the capital are never quiet. Caligula rises, unpredictable, tyrannical, a ruler whose whims terrify as much as they fascinate. Nero follows, his reign marked by ambition, excess, and catastrophe, the great fire of Rome consuming neighborhoods, while rumors swirl about the emperor's role. And yet, Rome survives, absorbing chaos into its vast system of governance and society. Meanwhile, across the provinces, Rome's influence is unshakable. Roads link distant lands, aqueducts bring water to cities, arenas roar with spectacle. Soldiers enforce peace, trade flourishes, and culture spreads. Writers and thinkers record everything: histories, poetry, speeches, and philosophy. The empire is both a machine of power and a cradle of civilization. Emperors rise and fall with the pulse of the empire. Trajan expands Rome to its greatest territorial extent, reaching from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the forests of Germania and the hills of Britannia. Hadrian builds walls to protect borders and establishes enduring architecture that will survive centuries. Marcus Aurelius contemplates the nature of virtue, writing meditations that will echo through philosophy. The empire is a living organism, magnificent and fragile, guided by leaders whose wisdom and folly shape the fates of millions. Yet, life in Rome is not only the affairs of emperors. Citizens, slaves, merchants, soldiers, and scholars all weave the tapestry of the empire. In bustling markets, traders exchange goods from India, Africa, and Gaul. In libraries, scribes record knowledge. In amphitheaters, crowds cheer gladiators, actors, and spectacles that both entertain and control the populace. The empire thrives not only because of its armies, but because it captures hearts, minds, and culture. However, the seeds of decline are sown even in times of glory. Political corruption grows, civil wars erupt, and the line of succession becomes uncertain. The empire splits into East and West, each with its own challenges. In the West, Germanic tribes press against the borders, seeking lands and plunder. In the East, Byzantium rises, preserving Roman law and culture, but separated from the original heart of the empire. Religion transforms the Roman world. Christianity, once persecuted, spreads quietly, gaining followers from the wealthy elite to the poorest citizens. Constantine embraces the faith, reshaping Rome's identity and laying foundations for a new world order. Pagan temples and Christian churches coexist, and the very soul of the empire changes. The narrator's voice softens, almost reverent, describing the profound impact of this shift. Rome, a civilization of stone and conquest, now carries the weight of spiritual transformation. Emperors, generals, and citizens all navigate this complex world. Diocletian attempts reforms, dividing the empire further to maintain control. Military and political pressures grow, economies strain, and the Western Empire teeters. In 410 CE, Rome itself is sacked by the Visigoths, a moment that shocks the world and signals the fragility of even the greatest power. Yet, the Eastern Empire, Byzantium, persists, guarding Roman legacy and law for nearly 1,000 more years. The narrator's voice lingers on the ruins of Rome, imagining the lives once vibrant in its streets, forums, and villas. Scholars, poets, gladiators, senators, and citizens, all contributed to a civilization that became legend. Rome's influence spreads far beyond its borders, shaping languages, governments, law, architecture, and culture across continents and centuries. The Roman Empire stands at the threshold of transformation, its power immense but its foundations beginning to crack. Internal strife, economic strain, and relentless pressure from outside forces converge. The Western Empire, once the heart of Rome, falters under the weight of invasions, political corruption, and dwindling resources. Emperors come and go in rapid succession, their reigns marked by intrigue, betrayal, and fleeting triumphs. The camera drifts over the streets of Rome, once bustling, now quieter, tension in the air palpable. Citizens whisper in the forum, markets feel subdued, and the grandeur of temples and aqueducts stands in silent testimony to centuries of glory. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, breached the gates in 410 CE. The sack of Rome is both devastating and symbolic. The city that once ruled the known world now lies vulnerable. Yet the spirit of Rome endures in memory, law, and culture. Meanwhile, the Eastern Empire, Byzantium, continues to thrive, preserving Roman law, military strategy, art, and architecture. Constantinople becomes the new capital, a beacon of continuity and civilization. The Eastern emperors rule with vigilance, learning from the mistakes that felled the West. Roman influence now stretches beyond the Mediterranean, blending with new cultures, languages, and religions. Even as political power wanes, Roman culture and achievements survive. Latin remains the language of law, learning, and the church. Roman roads, aqueducts, and architectural innovations inspire generations across Europe and beyond. Writers and historians record the empire's triumphs and failures, ensuring that Rome's story continues to educate, fascinate, and influence humanity long after the last emperor has passed. Christianity, once a persecuted faith, now thrives as a dominant cultural force. The transformation of Rome from pagan empire to Christian civilization reshapes not only religious practice but also law, art, and governance. Basilicas rise where temples once stood, and moral and philosophical ideas evolve alongside politics and society. Rome becomes more than a city, it is a symbol, a foundation for future Western civilization. Across the lands that Rome once ruled, the echoes of its power endure. Languages carry Latin roots, legal systems reflect Roman codes, and cities mimic Roman planning and architecture. Even centuries later, scholars, writers, and leaders look back to Rome for inspiration, strategy, and cautionary lessons. The narrative of Rome is not confined to history books, it is alive in the modern world. The narrator's voice softens, guiding the viewer through this reflection. The empire's fall is not the end, it is transformation. Rome survives in the minds, cultures, and governments it influenced. Its story teaches the endurance of human ambition, the fragility of power, and the beauty of civilization built on law, culture, and imagination. Finally, the documentary pans over the ruins of the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, aqueducts spanning valleys, and statues of emperors. The camera pulls back to a wide aerial view of Italy, the Tiber River winding through history. The narrator concludes, Rome was not merely an empire, it was an idea, a story written over centuries, carried through triumph and disaster, and forever shaping the world that followed.